Hello, today I'm going to be talking about Ernest Hemingway's books. This is a collection by Arrow Books, and I've arranged them in order of publication. Ernest Hemingway, of course, is one of the most famous writers of the 20th century. He was born just outside Chicago in 1899 and died in Ketchum, Idaho in 1961. So, first up, we have The Sun Also Rises. This is, I think, the most impressive of Hemingway's works. It was completely original when it came out in 1926. Nobody had ever written with his style before. It's quite remarkable, really, that he kind of reinvented fiction. And this is really a love story set in Paris and in Spain between Brett and Jake. And while they want to be together, they can't be due to a reason that isn't explicitly mentioned in the text, but reading between the lines, you can see why. Next up is the book that really took Hemingway into the mainstream, made him famous. A Farewell to Arms. This is a First World War story set in Italy. Hemingway himself was involved in the First World War in Italy, working as an ambulance driver. The Italians were fighting the Austrians, and Hemingway was injured. He was wounded by shrapnel, and while he was recovering in hospital in Milan, he met a nurse, and they fell in love, began a relationship, and that's basically the story of the book. You will often see in Hemingway's books the parallels with his own life, but many people consider this to be his best work. Next up is Death in the Afternoon. This is a guide to bullfighting. Hemingway was very passionate about bullfighting. He was an aficionado. Personally, I don't agree with bullfighting, but I still think this guide was quite interesting, as Hemingway really explains how the whole sport, if you can call it a sport, how the whole sport is organised and what happens within the fight. And the more interesting parts talk about the matadors and sort of their personalities and how they handle the pressure, the fear. But it's not really a colourful guide. This one it's not really perhaps a book that would interest the general public much. But then we have To Have and Have Not. This is set in Cuba, and it's about a kind of scoundrel called Harry Morgan, who he's kind of a smuggler and thief. I don't think this is a particularly good book. It's okay. Then we have the first 49 stories. By the way, I think this is a great cover. As the title suggests, this is the first 49 stories that Hemingway wrote. They were all written in the interwar years, and some of them are very, very good, like The Short Happy Life of Francis McComber and The Snows of Kilimanjaro. There's 49, so you're not going to like all of them, but yeah, many people think that the best Hemingway is his short stories, and they may be right. Then we have For Whom the Bell Tolls, set during the Spanish Civil War, and really This is about an American called Robert Jordan who has been tasked with blowing up a bridge to stop the advance of the fascists. Uh, some people consider this to be Hemingway's greatest work. I think it's an enjoyable story, and I think that it's perhaps Hemingway in a more kind of mature, serious, writing as an experienced older man, and yeah, it's one of his better books. Then we have Across the River and Into the Trees. Now, unfortunately, I think this is probably Hemingway's worst book. It's set in Venice, and it's really about an old American man and a teenage Italian countess who have a kind of very strange relationship. The age difference makes it quite inappropriate. Hemingway himself was kind of infatuated with a young Italian girl, and that definitely inspired this story. But I have to say, this is a poor book, and it was poorly received at the time. Then we have The Old Man and the Sea. Now, that's got to be Hemingway's most famous book. Many people read it in school, and it's a very short book, a novella. It's about a Cuban fisherman who is trying to catch a marlin, and he finds that that to be a very difficult task, and it takes days, and by the end of it, there's not much left of this great fish, and it's not a book that I personally love. I think it's probably just a bit too simplistic, but it's still, you know, one of his better books. One of the more interesting things to me is the fact that Hemingway wrote it at all. I mean, by this point in his life, he was very washed up physically and mentally. I mean, he'd had many concussions by this point, and he was an alcoholic, so I don't really know how he managed to write this book at all. That's kind of the impressive part. And he won the Nobel Prize in literature shortly after this, so it's certainly an impressive achievement. Finally, we have A Movable Feast. This was published posthumously, and it's about Hemingway's youth in Paris with his first wife, Hadley Richardson, and it's not fiction. Then it's Hemingway's portrayal of his time in Paris in that particular milieu. Hemingway does kind of misrepresent the truth because he pretends that he was really poor during this time, and he wasn't. He was comfortable. But I think this is great at showing a certain time and place. There's a kind of romantic feel to it. And I think this is the first Hemingway book I read, and I would recommend it. So that is my collection of Hemingway books. He's a controversial figure, and many of his views and hobbies are not really well liked in the 21st century. He was considered a bit old-fashioned in his own lifetime, but I hope this was an interesting overview of the man and his work, and if you are interested in him, I would recommend the recent documentary by Ken Burns. Thanks for watching.